I still remember the exact second it happened. I was sitting at my kitchen table on a Tuesday night, eating leftover pasta, half watching something on my laptop, doing absolutely nothing important. My phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Tasha had tagged a location. I tapped it without thinking. The photo loaded. 6 people. Red rock formations behind them. That specific canyon, the one with a narrow trail that opens into a wide basin, the one I had screenshotted from a travel blog and dropped into our group chat with the message, "This is where we need to go next year." Derek was laughing at something off camera. Caleb had his arm around Jordan. Marcus was front and center, sunglasses on, smiling like he'd just won something. The caption said, "The whole crew, I put my fork down." I sat there for a long time just looking at the photo. Not crying, not angry. Just doing this strange, quiet math in my head. I had found that location. I had researched the best trails, the best time of year to go, the restaurants within driving distance, the hotel that had the view. I had built a whole rough itinerary and shared it in the chat 8 months ago. Everyone had reacted with fire emojis. Marcus had said, "Bro, this needs to happen." It happened. I just wasn't there. And here is the part that I keep coming back to. The part that told me everything I needed to know about the previous 6 years of my life. Nobody called to explain. Nobody texted a heads up. Nobody said, "Hey, the date's changed," or "Hey, we had to move fast on this one." Tasha tagged a location on a public photo before she thought to send me a single word. That was the moment I understood what I actually was to these people. Not a friend, a function. And functions don't get invited on trips. They just get used to plan them. The thing about being useful is that it happens so gradually you don't notice it becoming an identity. It didn't start with some big moment where I volunteered to be the group's personal assistant. It started with small things, reasonable things. I'm organized by nature, always have been. I remember dates, I make lists, I research before I commit to anything. So when we were all figuring out where to eat for Derek's birthday back in 2018, I just sent a list of 3 places with the menus already pulled up. Everyone picked one. We went. It was fine. That should have been a one-time thing. It wasn't. By 2019, I was the one who handled reservations. By 2020, I was the one who found the Airbnbs, compared the prices, read the reviews, and presented options like I was running a budget travel agency for 5 adults who were fully capable of using Google. By 2021, if I didn't initiate a plan, there was no plan. The group didn't go dormant when I went quiet. It just waited. Like a car sitting in park, engine off, waiting for someone to turn the key. I was the key, and I thought that meant something. I genuinely did. I thought being needed was the same as being valued. I thought because they always said yes to my plans, always showed up to things I organized, always responded with enthusiasm when I dropped a new idea into the chat. I thought that was friendship. I thought the dynamic made sense because I liked planning and they liked showing up, and that was just how we worked. What I didn't understand, what took me an embarrassingly long time to understand, is that there's a difference between a friend who happens to be good at organizing and a person who has been quietly slotted into a role because it's convenient for everyone else. I found out which one I was by accident. It was about 2 years before the Sedona photo. We were at a rooftop bar for Caleb's birthday, and I was in the bathroom when I heard 2 people talking near the door. I didn't recognize the voices immediately. One of them mentioned our group by name. The other one asked how they all knew each other. The first voice said, and I remember this with complete clarity, "Oh, we've been friends forever. There's like 6 of us. We have this one guy, Ryan, who basically plans everything. He's kind of the glue. He just likes doing all that stuff." He just likes doing all that stuff. I stood there for a second longer than I needed to. Then I washed my hands and went back to the table and ordered another drink and didn't say anything because what was I supposed to say? I told myself it was a compliment. I told myself being the glue was a good thing. I told myself the person outside just didn't explain it right. I was very good at telling myself things back then. What that sentence actually was, he just likes doing all that stuff, was a transfer of responsibility. It wasn't describing my personality. It was absolving 5 people of any guilt for never once offering to carry what I was carrying. Because if I liked it, then it wasn't something they were taking. It was something I was giving. Freely. Happily. By choice. You can't exploit someone who likes it. That's the beauty of the framing. And the worst part is it wasn't even a conscious decision on their part, at least not at first. People don't sit down and think, let's use Ryan. What they do is simpler and harder to fight. They just never push back against a comfortable pattern. They let the useful person keep being useful because correcting it would require effort and honesty and a conversation nobody wants to have. So they didn't have it. And I kept planning trips I apparently wasn't always invited on. I didn't blow up after the Sedona photo. I want to be clear about that because the version of this story where I send a long, angry text at midnight and everyone scrambles to explain themselves, that's not what happened. That's not who I am. And honestly, that version would have let them off too easy. What I did was simpler. I stopped. No initiation, no planning, no, hey, what's everyone doing this weekend? No restaurant suggestions. No links dropped into the chat. No, who's free Saturday? I just went quiet and waited to see what happened. The answer was nothing. Day 3, nothing. Day 5, Caleb sent a meme. Not to me specifically, just into the chat. Derek reacted with a laughing emoji. That was the extent of it. Day 8. Jordan asked if anyone had seen some show on Netflix. Tasha said she hadn't started it yet. Marcus said it was good. Nobody said anything to me, and I hadn't said anything to them, and apparently that was completely fine with everyone. 2 weeks passed. Not one person said, hey Ryan, you good, or haven't heard from you, or you've been quiet. Nothing. The chat didn't die. It just continued without the thing that had been powering it. Memes. Reactions. Surface-level noise. The connective tissue was gone, and nobody noticed because nobody had ever been paying attention to what was actually holding things together. I sat with that for a long time. There's a specific kind of hurt that doesn't feel like hurt at first. It feels like clarity. Clean and cold and very still. You're not crying. You're just finally seeing the room you've been standing in for years with the lights actually on. That's what 2 weeks of silence gave me. And then I did something I'd never done before. I opened a plain notes app on my phone and I started writing things down. Not feelings. Facts. March 2021. Booked the Lake Travis Airbnb. Paid the deposit, $340. Venmo request sent. Derek paid back $180, said he'd get the rest later. Never did. June 2021. Covered Jordan's portion of the San Antonio hotel because he said he was short that week. $210. Never came back up. September 2021. Paid for the group's first round at the rooftop bar for Caleb's birthday because Caleb said he forgot his card. $160 tab. Everyone else ordered like the round was free. Nobody offered to split it afterward. November 2021. Researched, booked, and coordinated the entire Thanksgiving weekend cabin trip. 14 hours of planning. Paid the cleaning fee out of pocket because nobody wanted to split a weird number. $95. Never mentioned again. I kept going. The list ran to 2.5 pages before I even hit 2022. And the thing that hit me hardest wasn't any single number. It was the pattern. Every entry looked the same. Ryan pays. Ryan plans. Ryan follows up. Ryan lets it go. Ryan doesn't make it weird, because that was always the quiet threat hanging over any attempt to be repaid or acknowledged. Don't make it weird, Ryan. Don't be that guy. It's just money. We're friends. Friends. I looked at 2.5 pages of dates and dollar amounts and unreturned effort, and I thought about that word for a long time. Then I added a new note at the bottom of the document. I titled it, "What Comes Next?" And I left it blank for now, because I wasn't ready to write it yet. But I was done. Completely, permanently done. Pretending the list didn't exist. I want to explain the Sedona trip properly, because it wasn't just an idea I tossed out. I built it. Not in 30 minutes. Not casually. I spent 3 nights on it, cross-referencing trails, weather, timing. I found a blog that mapped out the exact loop from Cathedral Rock to Devil's Bridge and adjusted it based on season, sunlight, and difficulty. I put everything into a shared document: itinerary, hotel options with pricing, restaurants, even a note about the permit system so we wouldn't miss access to the trailhead. I dropped it in the group chat on a Saturday morning. Marcus said, "Bro, this is insane. You're literally a travel agent." Derek, "I'm in whenever." Caleb, fire emojis. Jordan, "We need to do this before summer." Tasha, "Ryan, you always come through." 8 months later, they went without me. And not just to Sedona, they went to my Sedona. Same hotel, the second option I recommended for the better view at a lower price. Same order of trails, same restaurants. I know because people post everything. The balcony view Tasha shared. I had saved that exact image for the doc. Caleb's video at Devil's Bridge. He mentioned almost missing the permit window, meaning someone had read my note. Jordan tagged the Italian place, the one I described as not a tourist trap. They followed the plan. Exactly. Every detail, every hour, every decision, lifted clean and used without me. And I kept asking myself why. Not emotionally, logically. If I made the trip better, why leave me out? Then it clicked. Because bringing me meant acknowledging me, and acknowledging me meant admitting they'd been taking it for granted for years. It was easier without me. The trip could just be the trip. No gratitude, no awkward moment where my role became visible. Leaving me out wasn't careless. It was intentional, self-protective. That realization sat with me for 2 days. Then something shifted. The hurt didn't disappear, it just changed shape, got colder, more useful. Because if they could do this, use the work, remove the person, protect their comfort, then what else had they done the same way? That's when I started looking, and that's when I found Marcus. Her name was Claire. We met at a networking event about 8 months before the Sedona trip. Smart, direct, easy to talk to. We stood there for 2 hours, then exchanged numbers. For a few weeks, it felt like something real might happen. Then it didn't. No argument, no moment. Just distance, shorter replies, plans that never locked in, then nothing. I told myself it was timing. People get busy. Not everything turns into something. And I left it there, until I ran into her again. It was about 2 weeks into my going quiet with the group. Coffee shop near my office, quick conversation, easy, nothing heavy. Then, right as she was leaving, she paused. "For what it's worth," she said, "I looked you up after." I don't know why I listened to him. I asked her what she meant. She hesitated, like she thought I already knew. "Marcus," she said. "He told me some things about you early on. I believed him because he was your friend." A small pause. "I shouldn't have." Then she left. I sat in my car for 40 minutes, not reacting, just connecting things. Then I started making a different kind of list. Not money this time. Patterns. Daniel Marsh, someone I'd been building a strong professional connection with for almost a year. Engaged. Responsive. Then suddenly gone. I assumed I'd misread it. An industry event I was supposedly told about. Marcus never mentioned it. The girl before Claire. The opportunity before Daniel. I kept going. Every door that closed without explanation. Every connection that cooled for no clear reason. Every time I blamed myself for reading something wrong. I hadn't misread anything. Marcus had been managing the edges of my life. Quietly, consistently. Anything that pulled me outward, new relationships, new opportunities, anything that made me less available, never fully formed. Not because it couldn't, because it didn't get the chance to. He didn't want me to leave. He wanted me contained, available, useful. And for the first time, I stopped seeing it as a coincidence and started seeing it as design. Jordan announced he was moving to Denver on a Wednesday. He posted it like good news. New opportunity, fresh start. Austin had been fun. Denver was calling. Lots of fire emojis in the group chat. Derek said, "Legend." Marcus said, "Bro, you're going to love it." Tasha said she was going to visit in the summer. I said nothing. I opened my notes app. Jordan Ellis. $210 from the San Antonio Hotel. $175 from the Highland Park Cookout, where I'd covered his share of the catering because he said he'd left his wallet in the car and then never brought it up again. $340 from the New Year's Eve table reservation I'd put on my card because the venue required a single payment, and everyone was supposed to Venmo me back that night. Jordan never did. Total, $725. I sat with that number for about 10 minutes. Then I picked up my phone and called a lawyer I'd been referred to through someone at Aldrin Solutions. Not a big firm. Just a straightforward guy who handled small civil matters and didn't charge for a first consultation. I told him the situation. He didn't flinch. He said small claims in Texas were cleaner than most people expected. The filing fee was low. The threshold was high enough to cover what I was owed across multiple people if I wanted to pursue it. He said the key was documentation, dates, amounts, any written acknowledgement of the debt, any Venmo or text records showing the money had changed hands. I had all of it. Every Venmo transaction. Every text where Jordan had said, "I'll get you back this week." Every group chat message where the amounts had been discussed and agreed upon. I had been organized my entire life, and for the first time that organization was going to do something useful for me instead of for 5 people who had never once said thank you. I filed the paperwork on a Friday afternoon. Jordan had 3 weeks before his moving date. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post about it. I didn't send a warning text. I just filed and went home and made dinner and watched something on my laptop and felt, for the first time in months, like I was moving in the right direction. The clock was running. Jordan just didn't know it yet. I texted Marcus on a Thursday morning. 7 words. Need to talk. Just us. Tonight work? 12 minutes later. Yeah, sure, everything good? I said yes. I picked a bar we'd never been to before. Neutral ground. Public enough to keep things controlled. Quiet enough to make it uncomfortable if things weren't. I got there early. Too early. Chose a corner table facing the door. Ordered water. Waited. Marcus showed up exactly like he always did, like he belonged everywhere he entered. Casual, relaxed. Scanned the room first, acknowledged a couple people, then made his way over like nothing ever weighed on him. He sat down, ordered a beer, smiled. "What's going on, man?" I didn't answer immediately. I put my phone on the table. Screen facing up. Everything was already organized, screenshots, timestamps, saved backups. I turned it toward him and waited. He looked. The first image. A text thread between Marcus and a woman I didn't know. A friend of Claire's. His words, plain and deliberate. Ryan's the type who gets obsessive when he likes someone. Kind of suffocating, honestly. Claire's better off. Sent 4 days after Claire and I had our second conversation, before anything had even had space to exist. He kept scrolling. The second, a LinkedIn message from Daniel Marsh's assistant, forwarded to me by Daniel himself. Marcus contacting his firm 6 months earlier. Not as a friend, as a reference. And describing me as reliable, but not leadership material, better in a support role. Marcus's face changed in real time. Surprise, then calculation, then something trying very hard to pass for confusion. Ryan, man, I can explain. I cut him off. I'm not here for an explanation. My voice stayed steady. That was the part I didn't expect to matter so much. I'm here to give you a choice. Silence landed between us. I told him what happened next. 48 hours. He tells the group everything himself. Clean, full, no framing. Or I send every screenshot to everyone involved. Every mutual contact, personal and professional. No threats in my tone, just structure. Marcus stared at me. You wouldn't do that. I stood up, didn't rush it, didn't hesitate. 48 hours, Marcus. I left him sitting there with his beer going flat and whatever version of the situation he still thought he could control. And I didn't look back once. Marcus didn't come clean. Of course he didn't. What he did instead was exactly what I expected from someone who had spent years managing narratives. He got ahead of it. Within 24 hours of our conversation, he was in the group chat running a quiet, surgical, preemptive strike. I know this because Tasha, who had always been the most passive member of the group, the one who floated along with whatever current was strongest, sent me a message at 11 p.m. that night. It just said, "What is going on with you and Marcus?" Not a question. A test. I didn't respond. What Marcus had told them I pieced together later from 2 separate conversations. He'd told the group I had gone weird, that I was acting paranoid, that he was worried about me, but that I'd said some things to him that came out of nowhere and he didn't know what to do. He framed it as concern. He made himself the reluctant narrator of Ryan's unraveling. It was a good move, honestly, if I hadn't already sent the screenshots. I had distributed everything 30 minutes before Tasha's message came in. Every screenshot, every documented conversation. Claire's name, Daniel Marsh's name, the dates, the specifics. Sent individually to Derek, Caleb, Tasha, and Jordan. Sent to 4 mutual professional contacts. Sent to 2 people in Marcus's own social circle who I knew peripherally, but who deserved to know who they were dealing with. And then I removed myself from the group chat. No announcement, no final message, no, you know what you did. I just left. Clean, quiet. Like closing a tab you don't need anymore. The call started at 7 a.m. the next morning. Derek called twice. Caleb texted a paragraph that began with, "Bro, I had no idea," which I did not believe for a single second, but noted anyway. Jordan called from a number I almost didn't recognize, probably because he'd just gotten the small claims notification and suddenly found his voice. Tasha sent 3 messages in a row that escalated from confused to guilty to defensive within about 40 minutes. Marcus didn't call. Marcus texted. Once, at 2 p.m. You really didn't have to do all that. I read it. Set my phone face down on my desk, and went back to work. There was nothing left to say. The group had spent 6 years making sure I understood my role. Now they were getting to understand theirs. The difference was I'd already moved on before they even knew I was gone. 6 months is not a long time, but it's enough to see things clearly. Jordan's small claims case settled 5 weeks after he landed in Denver. He didn't fight it. Couldn't, really, given the documentation. The money came back in a single Venmo transfer with no message attached. $725. I stared at the notification for a few seconds, then locked my phone, ordered my coffee, and went on with my day. It wasn't satisfying in any dramatic sense. It was just correct. A debt resolved in the only language Jordan had ever consistently responded to. That same week, I sent formal repayment requests to Derek and Caleb. Caleb paid within 48 hours. No argument, no negotiation, just a short text. "I'm sorry, Ryan." I read it once and didn't reply. Derek resisted at first, then went quiet. Then paid 2 weeks later after I followed up with a single message referencing the documentation I still had. No court needed. Just clarity that I wasn't going to let things drift anymore. The money was never the point. I need to be clear about that. It was never about the dollar amounts. It was about 6 years of absorbing costs, financial, emotional, professional, and telling myself it was the price of belonging somewhere. Getting it back wasn't about gain. It was about correction, about refusing to let the record stay distorted. Daniel Marsh reached out again in month 2. He'd done his own verification after my message, spoken to Marcus directly, and, by his own account, didn't like what he heard. We met for coffee. It was straightforward. No tension, no history in the way. Just a reset without interference. Claire and I ran into each other again in month 4. This time we didn't cut the conversation short. She was direct about what Marcus had told her, and equally direct about regretting that she believed it. I respected that more than I expected to. We've had dinner twice since then. I'm not naming it yet. I've learned enough to know that anything real doesn't need managing. It doesn't need coordination. It just continues on its own. The group still exists. I know because the internet doesn't stop showing you things you're no longer part of. They still meet, still post, still go on trips. But something about it looks flatter now, less cohesive. The energy that used to feel automatic now feels assembled. The chat that once ran on constant momentum now moves in shorter bursts, like it's missing something it can't quite identify. Marcus is still in it. Of course he is. But I've heard from 2 separate people that conversations don't settle the way they used to. That things get revisited, that the screenshots came up at a dinner months ago and Marcus couldn't account for them cleanly. That the table went quiet in a way that didn't fully recover. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. Here's what I understand now that I didn't understand 6 years ago. Belonging isn't the same as being needed. Presence isn't the same as value. And a group held together by one person doing all the structural work isn't a friendship. It's a system. And when the load-bearing piece is removed, the system doesn't adapt. It just reveals what it was the entire time. My life is smaller now, but it's solid. 2 people I trust completely. A professional network rebuilding on accurate terms. An apartment in Austin that's quieter in a way that doesn't feel empty anymore. Just unoccupied by noise I don't need. I stopped being the glue. It turns out I was the only one who ever needed it to hold.